Okay, let's dive straight into Matthew chapter 26.
Yeah.
This part of the story is, well, it's absolutely packed with dramatic events. Things really shift gear here.
Oh, definitely. It's the acceleration point, isn't it? We're talking about the final days, that week leading up to the Passover festival. Jesus is with his disciples, but you can feel the tension is just incredibly high.
Yeah, and things are unfolding with startling speed,
Mm-hmm.
right? The chapter lays out this sequence that includes, secret plots against Jesus, this really powerful, unexpected act of devotion.
And then the dark agreement to betray him.
Exactly. A final pivotal meal establishing new meaning, that agonizing prayer in the garden.
His arrest and, yeah, some really painful failures by those closest to him.
So our mission in this deep dive is basically to walk through this intense sequence, try to understand the flow of events.
And pull out those crucial details, those insights that make this narrative so pivotal and honestly so deeply human.
Okay, so the chapter opens with Jesus finishing his teaching, and he tells his disciples something pretty blunt, very precise.
Yeah. He says Passover is just 2 days away, and the Son of Man is going to be handed over to be crucified. Just like that. He knows exactly what's coming.
And what's striking is the timing, right? Because it's Jesus is saying this.
In parallel, the chief priests and the elders, they're meeting over at the palace of Caiaphas, the high priest.
And their whole agenda, figuring out how to arrest Jesus in some sly way, as the text says, and kill him.
But they had a condition, didn't they? They were worried about the crowds.
Right, during the feast.
Yeah.
So they initially said not during the feast, which creates this incredible tension. Jesus states his fate. The authorities are maneuvering to make it happen.
But ironically, trying to avoid the very timing Jesus just announced. It's quite something.
Precisely. And then right in the middle of all this plotting and prediction, you get this beautifully contrasting scene in Bethany.
Ah, yes, Jesus is at the home of Simon the leper.
And this woman comes in. She has an alabaster jar of very expensive perfume, and she just pours it on Jesus's head while he's reclining at the table. It's this lavish, very public act.
And the reaction from the disciples is immediate. Indignation. They just see it as reckless waste.
Yeah, their argument is purely practical. This perfume could have been sold for a high price, the money given to the poor. You could almost hear the frustration, maybe a little self-righteousness too.
Feels very relatable, doesn't it? That practical view versus the seemingly impractical act. But Jesus' response just completely reframes it.
He does. He asks why they're bothering her, declares she's done a beautiful thing.
And he contrasts her single act with their ongoing opportunity to help the poor, emphasizing, he won't always be physically with them.
And here's where it gets really interesting. It reveals the depth of what she did. He explains that by pouring the perfume on his body.
She was actually preparing him for burial.
Yeah. And then he makes this astonishing statement. Wherever this gospel is preached throughout the world, what she has done will also be told in memory of her.
Wow. So what some saw as, thoughtless waste, Jesus elevates. It becomes this profound prophetic act directly linked to his impending death.
And he guarantees her legacy alongside the core gospel message. It highlights a kind of devotion that saw something others, even the closest disciples, completely missed.
And the contrast couldn't be sharper with what happens next, the very next event.
Because immediately after this act of costly, almost prophetic devotion, Judas Iscariot.
One of the 12, one of the inner circle.
He goes straight to the chief priests.
Now, this raises huge questions about Judas's motives, of course. People have debated it for centuries: greed, disillusionment, something else entirely. But the text is starkly direct about his action.
He just asks them plainly, "What are you willing to give me if I hand him over to you?"
And they name their price: 30 silver coins.
30 silver coins. And as you mentioned, that price itself carries weight, doesn't it, in the Old Testament?
Yeah, that was the compensation for an injured slave. What does it say about their valuation of Jesus paying the price of a common slave?
It's a deeply symbolic number. Underscores the calculated nature of the betrayal.
And from that moment, Judas is actively looking for the right opportunity. So you've got the high-level plot, the profound devotion, and now this specific insider deal driven by betrayal. The momentum is really building fast.
Absolutely. Okay, so then we move forward. First day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. That's when the Passover lambs would be sacrificed.
And the disciples asked Jesus, where should we prepare the Passover meal? Practical question.
He gives them quite specific instructions. Go into the city, find a particular man, tell him directly from Jesus.
The teacher says, my appointed time is near. I'm going to celebrate the Passover with my disciples at your house. Very direct.
They follow his direction, they prepare the meal, and in the evening, they're all there, reclining at the table, the 12 with Jesus, sharing this hugely significant traditional meal.
And while they're eating, Jesus drops another bombshell right into the relative calm of the ritual.
He tells them point blank, one of you will betray me.
The reaction described isn't anger, interestingly. It's sorrow. Deeply saddened, they start asking him, one after another.
Surely not I, Lord. You can hear the distress, the shock rippling around the table.
Jesus confirms the betrayer is one dipping his hand into the shared dish with him, someone intimately connected.
He acknowledges he'll go to his fate, just as it is written about him, affirming the prophetic necessity.
But then he pronounces this terrible judgment on the betrayer, saying it would be better for him if he had not been born. That's a chilling statement.
And then the man himself, Judas, the one who's already made the deal, he asks.
Surely not I, Rabbi.
And Jesus' answer is immediate, stark. Yes, it is you. Just imagine that moment, that quiet confirmation of the unthinkable right there at the table.
And with that heavy truth just hanging in the air, the meal transforms.
Jesus takes bread, gives thanks, breaks it, gives it to his disciples, saying, take and eat, this is my body.
And then he takes the cup, gives thanks, offers it. Drink from it, all of you. This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins.
This is it. The institution of these new profound symbols within the familiar Passover framework.
He calls it the blood of the new covenant. He's connecting back to the old covenant sealed by blood at Sinai, but establishing something fundamentally new.
A new relationship with God, sealed not by animal sacrifice, but by his own life, leading directly to the forgiveness of sins. It's a complete redefinition of the ritual they were performing.
Yeah. And he also tells them he won't drink wine again until he drinks it anew with you in my Father's kingdom. A look forward beyond the suffering.
After singing a hymn, probably part of the traditional Passover ceremony, they leave. They go out to the Mount of Olives.
And Jesus shifts focus slightly. He starts preparing them not just for what's about to happen to him, but what's about to happen to them.
He tells them directly, this very night you will all fall away on account of me.
And he quotes Zechariah. I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. It's a prediction of their failure, their abandonment.
But he immediately adds a promise. After I have risen, I will go ahead of you into Galilee. So a scattering, yes, but then a planned regathering.
And Peter, ever the impulsive one, right? He immediately interjects with absolute confidence. Even if all fall away on account of you, I never will.
He's so certain of his own loyalty. But Jesus responds with this specific painful prediction just for Peter.
This very night, before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times. He predicts the exact nature, the timing of Peter's failure.
And Peter, doubling down, gets even more emphatic. Even if I have to die with you, I will never disown you.
And the text notes that all the other disciples, maybe caught up in the moment, maybe genuinely believing it, said the exact same thing, which just sets up this stark contrast with what's about to happen.
It really does. So they arrive at Gethsemane, an olive grove. Jesus asks most of the disciples to sit down while he goes to pray.
But he takes Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee, James and John, a little further with him. And here, the text says, he begins to feel intensely sorrowful and troubled, deeply distressed.
He reveals his inner state to them. My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me. This isn't just sadness, it's existential anguish.
He goes a short distance away, falls on his face, that posture of complete submission, agony even, and prays this raw, difficult prayer.
My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will. He's wrestling, isn't he, with the core purpose of his mission.
Absolutely. The cup isn't just physical death, it's bearing the weight of sin. It reveals this profound tension between his human will facing unimaginable suffering and his divine purpose, his obedience to the Father.
And when he returns to those 3 disciples, the ones he asked specifically to support him in this moment,
he finds them sleeping. After being told his soul is sorrowful to the point of death, they fell asleep. He singles out Peter, doesn't he?
Yeah, could you men not keep watch with me for 1 hour?
Then he gives them that famous instruction. Watch and pray so that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the body is weak. He recognizes their intention, but also their human limits.
He goes away again, prays a second time, the same prayer of submission.
Returns, finds them sleeping again. Their eyes were heavy, the text says.
Leaves them, prays a 3rd time, repeating the prayer, fully accepting the Father's will now.
By the time he returns the third time, the moment for prayer seems to be over. The wrestling is done.
He tells them, "Are you still sleeping and resting? Look, the hour is near. The Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. The time for action has arrived."
He immediately says, "Rise, let us go. Here comes my betrayer." And as he's still speaking,
Judas arrives. But he's not alone.
no, he's leading a large crowd armed with swords and clubs, sent by the chief priests and elders, the ones who were plotting earlier.
And the signal for the arrest, the one Judas had prearranged, it's chillingly intimate, deceptive.
The one I kiss is the man. Arrest him.
Judas walks right up to Jesus, says, "Greetings, Rabbi," and kisses him.
And Jesus' response is poignant. He calls him friend, then says, "Do what you came for." Immediately after that, the men step forward, seize Jesus, arrest him.
And in the chaos that follows, one of Jesus' companions, John's Gospel tells us, it's Peter, reaches for a sword.
Draws it, strikes the servant of the high priest, cuts off his ear. A moment of misguided loyalty. Panic.
Jesus tells him sharply, "Put the sword back. For all who draw the sword will die by the sword." He's rejecting violent resistance right there.
Absolutely. And then he makes this astounding statement about the power he chooses not to use. He says he could call on his Father for more than 12 legions of angels.
More than 12 legions. A Roman legion was what? Typically 6,000 soldiers? He's talking about summoning tens of thousands of supernatural beings. The scale of the power he's renouncing is astronomical.
But he doesn't. He explains it must happen this way. Why? So the scriptures might be fulfilled.
He then addresses the crowd, the ones with weapons. Asks if they thought he was leading some kind of rebellion.
Points out he taught openly in the temple courts every day, and they didn't arrest him then. He reiterates, this arrest is happening now, like this, specifically that the writings of the prophets might be fulfilled.
And just as Jesus had predicted, back on the Mount of Olives, at that moment when he's seized,
all the disciples deserted him and fled. The scattering begins, his prophecy fulfilled right there.
those who arrested Jesus, they take him straight to Caiaphas, the high priest.
And the teachers of the law, the elders, have already gathered. The Sanhedrin, the Jewish High Council, is convened even in the middle of the night. It's highly irregular.
But Peter, despite fleeing initially with the others, he turns back. He follows, but significantly at a distance.
Right up to the courtyard of the high priest's palace, he goes inside the courtyard, sits down with the guards, trying to see what happens, trying to be close, but not too close.
Meanwhile, inside, the chief priests and the entire Sanhedrin are basically scrambling. They're desperate to find false evidence against Jesus to justify condemning him to death.
Lots of false witnesses come forward, but their testimony doesn't line up. They can't get agreement, can't build a solid case.
Finally, 2 witnesses step up. They claim Jesus said, "I am able to destroy the temple of God and rebuild it in 3 days."
Twisting his words about his body, of course.
The high priest stands up then, interrupts the proceedings, and directly challenges Jesus, asked as if he has any answer to this testimony.
But Jesus remains completely silent, fulfilling another prophetic description, the suffering servant who doesn't open his mouth.
So Caiaphas uses the ultimate tactic, puts Jesus under oath by the living God, demands, "Tell us if you are the Christ, the Son of God." This is it, the central question.
And Jesus breaks his silence, answers directly, "Yes, it is as you say."
But he doesn't stop there, does he? He adds to it. He prophesies his future glory and authority.
In the future, you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven. He's referencing Psalm 110 and Daniel 7. He's not just claiming to be Messiah, he's asserting a divine identity and authority linked to God himself in those scriptures.
And that is it. That claim makes Caiaphas react violently.
The high priest tears his clothes, this dramatic gesture of outrage, mourning, shouting, "He has spoken blasphemy. Why do we need any more witnesses?"
He declares the council has heard the blasphemy from Jesus' own mouth. Asks the assembly, "What do you think?"
And the verdict from the council is swift, unanimous. He is worthy of death.
And immediately, the abuse starts. The soldiers, others there in the courtyard, they begin to spit in Jesus' face, strike him with their fists, slap him.
They mock him. "Prophesy to us, Christ, who hit you?"
The official religious trial might be over, but the humiliation, the physical torment begins.
And while all this is unfolding inside, the narrative cuts back to Peter, still outside in the courtyard, sitting with the guards, trying to observe unnoticed.
And a servant girl approaches him.
Confronts him directly, points him out. "You also were with Jesus of Galilee."
And Peter, despite those earlier fervent declarations of loyalty, even unto death, he denies it. Before them all, the text says. I don't know what you're talking about, the first denial.
He then moves out towards the gateway, maybe thinking he'll be less conspicuous there.
But another girl sees him, says to the people standing around, "This fellow was with Jesus of Nazareth." And again, Peter denies it, this time backing it up with an oath, "I don't know the man." Second denial. Stronger, more public.
And it happens a third time. A little while later, people standing nearby notice something about him, his speech.
"Surely you are one of them," they say, "for your accent gives you away." His own voice betrays his origin.
And in this moment of ultimate pressure, facing exposure, probably arrest himself, Peter doesn't just deny again. He starts to call down curses on himself, swears definitively, "I do not know the man." The third denial, emphatic, fearful.
And the text notes, with just devastating simplicity, "Immediately a rooster crowed."
That sound, that common signal of dawn, it triggers the memory of Jesus' specific, painful prediction just hours before.
"Before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times.
And the chapter ends right there. Peter going outside, weeping bitterly. It's just raw, heartbreaking, a counterpoint to his earlier boasts.
Underscores the immense human frailty, doesn't it? The fear that can overwhelm even the strongest intentions. Failure under pressure, despite genuine loyalty somewhere deep down.
So we've covered this incredibly dense sequence in Matthew 26. The plotting, the anointing, Judas's deal,
The Passover meal redefined, the struggle in Gethsemane, the betrayal and arrest.
the hurried trial before Caiaphas, the blasphemy charge, and, Peter's painful denials ending in bitter regret.
And you see these intensely human elements all the way through Jesus' deep sorrow, his struggle, the disciples' moments of loyalty mixed with overwhelming fear.
That causes them to scatter, Peter to deny. All set against Jesus' clear foresight and the relentless unfolding of what he knew had to happen to fulfill prophecy.
It's a sequence where circumstances change so drastically, so quickly. And you see how individuals react or fail to react under that immense pressure.
Yeah, themes of loyalty, betrayal, devotion, suffering, determination, human weakness, they're all intensely present and still deeply relevant, you feel.
Absolutely. And thinking back to that woman in Bethany, Jesus made that incredible statement, didn't he? That her act of anointing would be remembered, told wherever the gospel is preached, guaranteeing her legacy.
Yeah. And almost immediately after that, his closest followers, his handpicked disciples, they scatter and deny him under pressure.
That tension between the promised enduring memory of a seemingly small private act of devotion by someone relatively unknown
Versus the immediate public failure and flight of his inner circle, the ones you'd expect to stand firm. What does that contrast tell us? About the nature of legacy, perhaps? About expectations versus reality? About just how profoundly frail human nature can be when faced with truly overwhelming events?
It's a powerful question to sit with, definitely.
Ah.
This is a lot to unpack. From this deep dive into Matthew chapter 26, what stands out most to you?